Welcome to the Pharmacovigilance Training Module M0. This module is dedicated to the EudraVigilance training offering in advance of the launch of the new EudraVigilance system in 2017. The module will provide an overview of the EudraVigilance training offering planned by the European Medicines Agency to prepare users in the areas of EudraVigilance, EVIDAS, ADR reporting, and signal detection, providing learning paths for new and existing system users. The module is organized around 5 sections, and we will start with a brief introduction to the module. So the target audience for this module is the same as outlined in the new EudraVigilance training plan. It consists of national competent authorities in the European Economic Area, market authorization holders, and commercial and non-commercial sponsors of clinical trials. We will now briefly go through the learning objectives of this module. So upon completing this training, each of the stakeholder groups should be able to understand the training offerings by the EMA in the above-mentioned areas of EudraVigilance, EVIDAS, ADR reporting, as well as signal detection, understand which training modules are relevant from the perspective of an NCA, MAH, or sponsor of clinical trial, and understand where and when to access the training materials. The next section provides an overview of the approach used for developing the training curriculum. So training has been organized by subject matter around 3 core areas. The first one is that of pharmacovigilance operation. This area contains modules which detail the key changes in pharmacovigilance legislation, the standards and guidelines, as well as the impact of these on the pharmacovigilance activities. The second area is that of EudraVigilance operations, and this contains modules which describe the EudraVigilance and EVDAS functionalities and components, as well as the various data analysis, submission, visualization, and reporting options. And last but not least, the IT system operation area is providing instructions on the modifications required to prepare internal systems for the EudraVigilance system enhancements. This area is targeted particularly at IT system developers. So the 3 training areas have been aligned with the identified learning needs of our key stakeholder groups. The first one, pharmacovigilance operations, aims to explain the key changes in the standards and guidelines and how these are affecting the pharmacovigilance activities. So we have prepared modules around the revised EudraVigilance access policy, the revised good pharmacovigilance practice modules, in particular Module 6 and Module 9, and the new 2010 pharmacovigilance legislation. The EudraVigilance operation area has been organized around 3 main learning areas. So the general modules is focused on more of the generic information around how to register in the EudraVigilance and EVDAS systems, as well as an overview of the EudraVigilance system components and how these all work together. The modules around EudraVigilance system are focused around data submission, data visualization, and data export. And lastly, the EVDAS modules contain learning around the data analysis functionality. And for EVDAS in particular, we have prepared dedicated modules for NCAs and MAHs. And each of these EudraVigilance operations modules are also accompanied by dedicated user guides. And lastly, the IT system operations area contains 2 main modules, and these cover the ISO ICSR standard implementation for IT system developers, as well as testing instructions for how to test ICSR submissions by EudraVigilance. In terms of the delivery methods for the EudraVigilance training curriculum, we have used 4 main methods. So the main one is that of e-learnings. All the trainings will be made available through videos such as this one. The videos will be accessible through the EudraVigilance training page on the EMA corporate website, with some of the modules actually split into multiple videos. Most of the main modules will also contain a short quiz which stakeholders can use in order to check their understanding of the key concepts. These can also be accessed by all users. And for new users only, a mandatory competency assessment will need to be undertaken upon completion of the training courses. Users will also be supported through guidance documentation, as well as user manuals. The detailed user manuals will also be made available for the EudraVigilance and EFDAS functionalities on the EMA corporate website. The new EV web interface will also contain additional information in the form of contextual help. We have also prepared webinars as well as face-to-face courses to support users around the implementation period. So a series of webinars will be organized over the course of 2017, which are targeted at NCAs and MAHs. The webinar dates will be published on the EudraVigilance training page, as well as the Network Training Center for NCAs. And a limited offering of face-to-face courses will be made available in 2017 and beyond. And these will mainly be targeted at the new system users. These will consist of the EFDAS training for NCAs module, as well as the EudraVigilance training on electronic reporting of ICSRs in the European Economic Area. More information on the availability of the new courses, as well as how to sign up for them, will be published on the EudraVigilance training page and the Network Training Center in early 2017. Upon completing the training modules, you'll have a few opportunities to provide feedback as well as test your knowledge. We have made available a series of surveys for each of the e-learning modules as well as for each user manuals. These will be very short surveys of 2 or 3 minutes with standard questions in which you can provide your feedback, and this would be very helpful for us in preparing future training materials as well as improving the existing ones. And then following completion of each training module, you'll have the opportunity to take a short quiz. This is entirely optional, and it's at your discretion whether you want to use it or not, but it's a good way to test your understanding of the key learnings from each of the modules. All these quizzes will be available on the EudraVigilance training page and will be published at the same time as the relevant training module is published. And lastly, if you are a new system user, you will need to complete a competency assessment. This will be limited to 1 user per organization and will consist of a multiple choice test as well as an assessed simulation of submitting an ICSR. More information on this, together with instructions on how to apply for the competency assessment and how to complete it, will be made available in the final batch of training publication in early 2017. The next section focuses on the learning pathway for each of the 3 main stakeholder groups. So if we start with national competent authorities, you can see listed on the slide each of the training modules which have NCAs as a target audience. As you can see, most of them are recommended learnings, so you are very much advised to try and follow each of these courses. And if you have further questions on the training materials or on the system implementation, you will also have the opportunity to attend a series of webinars which will take place in 2017, and we will have targeted webinars for pharmacovigilance operations and EudraVigilance and FDAS functionalities, which will act as an opportunity for you to ask questions. The MAH learning pathway is very similar to that of the NCA. And as you can see, most of the courses are quite similar, especially in the pharmacovigilance operations area and the IT system operations area. A few key differences are around EudraVigilance operations, where we have 2 additional training modules. One is for medical literature monitoring, and another one is for the level 1 access to FVDAS, as MHs will obtain access to the system once the new system is implemented. And if you are a new user, you have 2 options. You can either follow this e-learning curriculum and undertake the competency assessment in order to access the system, or you can go to the face-to-face training course, which will be available in 2017 and beyond. This will also contain a competency assessment at the end and will allow you to register into the system following the successful completion of this. And finally, sponsors of clinical trials have more dedicated learning pathways. So in the pharmacovigilance operations area, it is recommended that they focus on 2 of the modules, that of the new EudraVigilance functionalities and the 2010 pharmacovigilance legislation, as well as the implementation of the ISO ICSR E2BR3. In the EudraVigilance operations area, they have very similar learning modules as that of MAHs and NCAs, and they also have the opportunity to undertake the face-to-face training and competency assessments should they prefer to do that. And the learning path for the IT system operations area is exactly the same, with courses on the standard implementation for IT system developers, as well as instructions on how to test ICSR submissions to EV. So stakeholders are advised to start training well in advance of the new system implementation, which is why we are making the training materials available as early as possible. And we also advise them to plan for regular refresher training ahead of the move to simplified reporting. So they can start preparing their own training plans, basing that on the EudraVigilance training plan, which is already published. And the EudraVigilance training plan lists out all the training courses available with details on the learning objectives of each course, as well as the target audience. So it's a very useful tool for you to undertake your planning. And in order to start training, you can start this as soon as Q2 of 2016, where about 6 or 7 of our modules will be published. And you are invited, of course, to give feedback on these early modules, which will be very useful in our preparation for the next 2 publications. The final section looks at where all these training materials can be accessed. As mentioned already, all the training modules can be accessed via the EudraVigilance Training Page. This is on the EMA corporate website with a path taking you from the pharmacovigilance and EudraVigilance section onto the dedicated EudraVigilance training page. All the training modules are listed in a table as clickable links. So once you click on the module, a section will open up with the details on that particular module, details such as the target audience, the duration of the course, the learning outcomes, the availability of this with a link to the actual videos. And in addition to that, we will also publish the PDF documents of each of the modules, associated legislation, supporting guidance, or associated user guides. And we will also publish the links to the quizzes as well as the links to the survey. And for national competent authorities, only the training modules will also be available on the EU Network Training Center. This is a particularly useful reference for registering for the face-to-face training module for the FDAS training for NCAs. This brings us to the end of training module Pharmacovigilance M0. The module will have provided you with the basis for understanding the training offerings by the European Medicines Agency in the areas of EudraVigilance, FDAS, ADR reporting, as well as signal detection. You would now understand what are the training modules which are relevant from the stakeholder perspective of an NCA, MAH, and sponsor of clinical trial, as well as the recommended and suggested courses for each stakeholder group. And you would now know where to access the training materials, as well as when to start your training preparations. So thank you very much for your attention, and please do provide us with feedback on this training module by completing a short survey. You can see the survey link below, and your feedback will be very useful in informing the development of the future training modules, part of the EudraVigilance training curriculum. Thank you again for your attention, and I hope this module was useful in your understanding of the EudraVigilance training plans, as well as the preparations in terms of training for the new EudraVigilance system implementation. Thank you very much.